Well, good morning, everybody. I know we've done sort of our introductions just previously, and I didn't think we met everybody, but thank you so much for posting your names on the chat. And as you know, Edmonton Region Immigrant Employment Council has been working with mentorship themes for probably, I think it's about 14 years, and had the great honor of sort of heading a really interesting project, which would take us into rural Alberta, and with the idea that sharing best practices. I mean, by no means we think Eric is a primary example of mentorship, because we learn basically by doing and scraping our knees and reinventing ourselves and listening to both mentors and mentees and shaping our mentorship initiatives. And we've got variations on the theme, but essentially it's about convening people. And where the magic happens is between the mentor and the mentee, and vice versa. And so Cheryl has been part of what we call the shenanigans of what we do. We love this work, and we love being creative about it and innovative. But we also learn so much from others who are also doing this kind of work, and that's where innovation comes. We're always learning and always developing and evolving. So I'm just going to bring up my notes here before I don't want to go too much off script. Cheryl's thankful. So thank you and welcome everyone to our session this morning. And our topic is how to attract and recruit mentors in a volatile economy. In today's volatile economy, that's a strong word, but it is. I mean, and we're always shifting and shaping something new in this economy, and keeping our eyes on the economy as well as we move forward in helping people to requite their dreams when it comes to living here in Alberta, and especially career dreams. The need for mentorship has never been greater, and yet attracting and recruiting mentors has never been more challenging. And some of those challenges are very systemic sometimes, and you probably heard many of these things, like resource constraints and lack of bandwidth by employers and organizations, labor market pressures. We know that Alberta employers are under a lot of strain these days, which equates as, they're less able to volunteer, let's say, in some of our initiatives. High demand and few mentors. Well, we know that story and that formula very, very clearly. Supply and demand mismatch leads to backlogs in our own programs. Volunteer reticence, I would say, some people just right away, as soon as you approach them, they say, but I'm not old enough, or I don't have enough gray hair, or I have way too much hair compared to Doug. But there's a reticence usually to, I don't know if I can take this on. I don't think I have the training. But so trying to instill, demystify the mentorship initiatives and building confidence for mentors so that they can pass on their real lived experience to others. And then new programs and lack of visibility. Those are kinds of, and for a lot of new organizations, they're struggling with funding, they're struggling with their branding, they're struggling with, people trying to recognize, who are these folks, and have they been in this game for a while? So this morning's session invites us as a community of practice to reflect on both the obstacles and opportunities of mentorship, the ongoing challenges of mentor recruitment, and why it makes a difference to recruit quality mentors. This has been an ongoing challenge, as I said, for us at ERIC. We've run the program for over 14 years, and we're constantly in recruitment mode and looking at different strategies as to how to recruit mentors for our program. Together, we can explore what truly makes a difference in engaging quality mentors who can guide, support, and inspire. We are very deeply grateful to the volunteers who have stepped forward today to share their knowledge and perspectives, helping us to strengthen this vital and very effective work that we do. In this session, we'll discuss, as a community of practices, the challenges and opportunities of being a mentor and what makes a difference when it comes to recruiting quality mentors. We are grateful to these volunteers and and their knowledge and their perspectives with us for this session, as I said. So Pauline Smalley, mentor with the Edmonton Chamber of Volunteer Organizations, but I see that, I think it might be Rihanna. But Pauline, Kayla Atke, mentor with Intervivos, Rhodas Massey, Brooks County in Immigration Services. She's the project coordinator for BCIS Employment Hub. Kazim Abalaji, hopefully I pronounced that right, Kazim, and he's with Gateway Association and the Mentorability Coordinator. This workshop is part of the Immigrant Mentorship Network, Alberta Immigrant Mentorship Network. It's a very hard acronym to pronounce, AIMNA. And AIMNA is an initiative led by the Edmonton Region Immigrant Employment Council, ERIC, to support the culture of mentorship for more inclusive communities and workplaces. ERIC is also grateful to the Edmonton Community Foundation for their support this year for their AIM pilot initiative. The land acknowledgement, which is very apropos and certainly important for us to state. Edmonton is located within Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4. We acknowledge this land as the traditional territories of many nations such as the Niha, Cree, Dene Sulin, Dene, Nakuta Sioux, Stoney, Anishinaabe, Saulteaux, and Niitsitapi, the Blackfoot. The City of Edmonton owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Edmonton home. Now, just before, I just wanted to add to that, I actually had a chance to speak to a group. I was interviewed in Caslow, BC, about music festivals, and they were asking about Edmonton and their music festivals, and I actually was able to sort of draw in on the land acknowledgement and the importance of the North Saskatchewan River, and that it was truly a confluence. And in the case of music, or in the case of business, it was a meeting place for everybody to come and have that interchange. So I think I just love the fact that it has had that kind of influence. Like, people wonder why Edmonton is in the place that it is, but because it truly was a confluence and a place to do trade, but also an interchange of culture and I would say maybe even best practices or nuanced ideas to take people into the future. So Cheryl, I'll leave it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Doug. And so, yeah, we'll have a few rounds of questions with the panel. Please feel free to jot early questions in the chat, but we'll have time later in the session to kind of open it up. And so, my first question is for Kayla and Pauline. They're showing up here, they've got full professional lives in their own right, and they're mentors. Or and so just wanting to ask, what makes mentoring fulfilling for you personally? Why did you say yes? What attracted you? Practical reasons, philosophical reasons, however you'd like to address that. And I'll let you choose your order to speak, but we'll have both of you.
Sure. Pauline, I'm good to go first if that works. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla Atke. I have a background in public health and currently work as an evaluation specialist for the Edmonton Police Service. So in this role, I essentially use social science research methods to inform organizational decisions and continuous improvement. So my mentorship journey started out in a bit of a roundabout way. It actually started out first as a mentee with Intervivos. So Intervivos is an Edmonton-based nonprofit whose mission is to cultivate leadership through dialogue, engagement, and mentorship. And they hold really fantastic mentorship programs every year that bring together mentees, otherwise known as protégés, and then mentors. So at the time, this was kind of a couple years back, I had recently started a new position in 2021 during the COVID pandemic. which, as I'm sure everyone recalls, was a super volatile time. And I was also just back from work from my second maternity leave in my life. So at the time, I considered myself a mid-career professional and already quite established in my career, but I was really interested in mentorship to help reorient myself after lots of career and life changes. So I started the 2023 Intervivos mentorship program as a mentee, and overall the experience was incredibly valuable. It really helped to boost my confidence. It helped me carve out some really important space for networking during a really busy time in my life. And importantly, it really helped me sort out some uncertainties I had about my career at the time. Fast forward to 2024, I was feeling much more settled and confident in my career and decided to join the Intervivos program, this time as a mentor. So as a mentor, I was paired with a mentee who had a similar background in public health as I did, and who was just starting out her career with the public service. So the experience as a mentor was really great. It was just as meaningful and valuable as kind of my experience as a mentee. And essentially, I was able to share lessons learned throughout my career. But importantly, as I think all mentors know, I was also able to learn from her insights and perspectives, which was really lovely. And so in terms of what makes mentorship fulfilling to me, I really think it is that two-way dialogue. It's just a great opportunity to carve out space for learning, sharing, and also to encourage your mentees' growth. And when I think back to kind of what makes mentorship fulfilling to me, I can't help but think back to my own journey. So like a lot of people throughout my education and career, I was always a high achiever. I always had the mindset that if you work really hard, everything will fall into place. But I definitely learned during COVID and my two mat leaves, it was kind of a bit of a mat leave, COVID, mat leave sandwich. I learned during that time that, that isn't always the case. And understanding what you want from your career and building the career that you want is actually quite complex and challenging. So I really feel that mentorship is this great opportunity to hopefully help others work through the complexities and barriers that they might be experiencing. And this is even more important in our current economy for women, for immigrants and newcomers, and for people of color. So if I can pass along a few lessons from my own experience and help to make someone else's journey a little bit easier, that feels really meaningful for me.
Great. Thanks, Kayla. Yeah, Pauline.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kayla, and thanks for starting off, and Doug for the land acknowledgement this morning. I appreciated that very much. The conversation around our river is really interesting to me. Yeah, so I'm Pauline Smale. I'm the executive director here at the Family Center in Edmonton. I've been in this role now for about 7 years. I'm speaking today with the hat on. I'm part of the ECVO Executive Director Mentorship Program. And so it is a group of executive directors that work with other executive directors in that mentor-mentee relationship. And there's three things that I want to talk about today in terms of why I find mentorship fulfilling and attractive. And the three for me are, one, I get to learn both professionally and organizationally. Two, I get to give back to my community. And three, I really have an opportunity to enhance the not-for-profit social sector. So I'll talk a little bit about those three. Hopefully they'll be helpful in terms of understanding how valuable this has been for me. Initially, learning both professionally and organizationally, I really see myself as a lifelong learner, and you can tell by the gray hair on my head. It's a long life. And I also work at an organization, the Family Center. We really pride ourselves on being a learning organization. And mentorship provides me really with an opportunity to grow, and it enhances my understanding of the work going on in the community. I get to understand some of the gaps, some of the innovative ideas, some of the challenges, some of the systemic issues. And that really helps me in my role as an executive director to make decisions and think systemically. So much of my work is sense making and understanding the environment. And as you've all pointed out so far, it is pretty volatile. I would agree with that word. And so mentoring really helps me do my job. The second thing, in terms of giving back to the community, a belief of mine is that it is really important that I invest my time in community, and I'm always trying to find ways to do that. Mentoring has been one of the ways that I get to do that. It's a vehicle for me. My understanding of a good volunteer experience is really one where you get to use your gifts, you get to meet people, it's fun, and it's reciprocal. And as you said, Kayla, it really is, you really do, I believe, I receive far more than I ever give. I always walk away smarter, happier, more engaged. So it's very meaningful from a mentor perspective. And then the last point I wanted to make was around enhancing the not-for-profit social sector. That sector is very important to me. I've been working within it for the last 35 years. By mentoring executive directors, I'm really able to increase the health of the entire sector. It increases the network of executive directors, and therefore it actually increases the agencies, all of us collectively, increasing our capacity through coordinated and collaborative efforts. And I share as much as I can with my colleagues. I have a really strong belief that give it away, give it away, give it away. So when they reach out, I respond, and I definitely reach out and try and be vulnerable and ask sometimes stupid questions, and make sure that I'm getting feedback. Because sometimes I have some wicked problems that I'm trying to sort through. Sometimes it's just a policy I need to, get some feedback on. But as executive directors, we tend to be isolated. And that might be true in many of our lives now, post-COVID. I know people are feeling a little more isolated. And so the ED mentorship program really helps us to create relationships and build a network. And together, we're, of course, stronger, we're smarter, and we're more able collectively to address some of the challenges in our community right now. So it's a very meaningful activity for me. Thanks.
Great. No, thank you so much, Pauline. And so we're always interested in diverse perspectives. And so we have Kazim and Rodas here to talk a little bit from their perspective, working in mentorship programs or mentorship employment related programming, to just share a little bit what challenges they've encountered or they've heard, are aware of in recruiting mentors. And so maybe Kazim, did you want to go first and then Rhoda?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kazim Abulaji. I am the project lead for Northern Alberta for Mentorability. And yes, I would love to talk a little bit about the challenges that I've been facing with recruiting mentors. I would say, the greatest barrier to recruiting high caliber mentors isn't particularly a lack of goodwill. It's been a series of unaddressed professional challenges that we believe that if it's properly reframed, we would get more successes. So at Mentorability, we face three critical challenges that I'm going to talk about. So for the first, with mentors, we're seeing a lot of the liability and expectation fears. As we all know, senior professionals are master risk assessors, and their primary hesitation is a dual fear. I'll start with the first one. The first is the primary concern that the mentorship can be misconstrued as a corporate endorsement or some sort of reputational liability to their company. And it also usually brings into the question their organization's level of social impact. The second, just as potent, is the social fear, the anxiety that the mentee will see this relationship as a direct pipeline to a job at their company, right? So they worry about that profound awkwardness of having to say, I can't get you a job, and then potentially disappointing someone that they've built such a strong connection with. And they use time as just a polite excuse to be very professional and have personal apprehension. So even, I can talk a little bit about this with an example. There's been a major organization that I've been trying to recruit several mentors from a specific department. And, I've been speaking with this individual for quite a little bit. They're very interested in signing up as a mentor and getting it going, but they did share a fear that they had a conversation with, higher level people in their organizations, and they're a little bit worried to be representing their organization, if you understand what I mean. So I can tell you that that is one of a major fear. The second challenge I would say is possibly the myopia of current expertise. Potential mentors get a little bit hyper focused on the specific technical skills that they're using currently. And for example, they think I'm the director of marketing now, so I can only help someone else in marketing. They completely overlook the immense value of their journey, the process they took, how they got their first job, how they negotiated a promotion, how they navigated a difficult boss. They might have been doing, I don't know, for example, they could have been doing something like sales for the last 10 years and they completely forget about it. That wisdom, what I like to call their career archaeology, I think is pure gold for our mentees. We don't just need your current title, we need the story of how you earned it, right? And I can even use myself as an example for this. This is something that I could 100% relate to, being someone that has a good background in sales and business development, and now I've been in non-for-profit for quite a little bit. I sometimes forget, all the skills that I've also accumulated in sales and business development, where when people ask questions about, a sales question, I'm not the first person to want to answer it because I no longer think of myself as a salesperson anymore. I'm in a non-for-profit field. So this is something that I can also say I relate with. Another one is my third and final one would be the logistical wall. You can have a willing mentor and a supportive company, but you do practically hit a brick wall with sometimes finding that protected time within a demanding 9 to 5 schedule, right? Without a formal structure or Without a formal structure, I find that mentoring usually gets squeezed into those lunch breaks and the after hours, and that usually leads to burnout and sometimes unsustainable relationships. And it's not a lack of commitment, it's just a failure of design, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we try to address some of these challenges, right? So for the liability and expectation, we at Mentorability, we try to provide very clear agreements and upfront training when we're talking to these mentors initially, setting very clear boundaries from day one for both parties, making it explicit for the mentee and the mentor that the goal is career guidance and network access, not a job placement at the mentor's company. This protects everyone, and it just allows a very genuine relationship to form. And for the expertise myopia, it's honestly, about changing up the conversation. We show potential mentors that their valuable assets isn't just their current skill, it's their accumulated wisdom. And sometimes, this might involve me having to take a look at a potential's mentor's LinkedIn and going through their past work history to say, hey, you actually did this for 10 years, and it would be great for you to talk about it, So something like that, that is a way we do that. And for the logistical wall issue, we're currently working with, some of the employer partners that we have to create integrated solutions into their processes, like a formal mentorship hour protected on a work schedule, for example, or work calendar. And yeah, we're working with some employers to see how that goes. But in terms of challenges, that's all I have. Yeah.
Great. Excuse me. Thank you, Kazim. Rhodas, please.
Awesome. I just want to say thank you, everyone that's shared all your experiences from the mentor's perspective, as well as Kazim. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm reflecting on everything that you've shared so far. I'm Rhodas. I'm with Brooks County Immigration Services, and it's interesting to see that some of the challenges are somewhat similar, but some are drastically different from what Kazim shared. And I feel it's probably because of the rural setting of where our program took place. With us, one of the initial challenges that we faced was lack of professionals in specific fields due to those professions being outsourced. An example was we had quite a few IT mentees wanting to go into IT, but didn't quite have too many IT professionals. And when I did a little bit of digging, I learned that some of our major companies here actually outsource their IT field into bigger cities. And there's organizations that sit outside of the borders of our community that run the IT operations. And so that proved a bit of a challenge for some of the specialized fields that we had mentees coming in. Another one was mismatched schedules. So one of the largest employers in our community is a meat processing plant. And of course, a lot of our mentees at that time were working survival jobs while they, attended the mentorship program to somewhat get back into their field. And we noticed a lot of them had the company has A, B, and C shifts. And so some of our mentees that were in the B shift had their mornings available when that would actually be when the mentor would be working. And so it was a bit of a struggle to come up with a solution that would fit both the mentor and the mentee. And I'll share about what things we did to solve or mitigate that. The other challenge was, as many of you might have experienced when you're first starting out with a program and you don't have a track record of what you've accomplished, all of the successes or mentors behind you to share testimonials, it's kind of a hard sell at the beginning. One of the things that we noticed was in our community specifically, mentorship was not something that was formally introduced. I think our program was the first in most of the communities we were in the program. And so we relied heavily on other mentors and mentee testimonials. And so to mitigate these challenges, some of the things we worked through is we resorted to flexibility. We had mentors that were in a different city that were willing to mentor someone virtually. We had people that were maybe retired or had more flexible schedules or ran businesses and could fit in mentees in the daytime. And then when onboarding new mentors, we had the help of actually the YouTube channel for AMIP. I'm still stuck at AMP actually, but essentially there's a lot of testimonials on YouTube that are from a mentor and a mentee perspective that we were able to show in all of our presentations. And so those were the three things that we did. And then I don't know if Cheryl, if you wanted us to continue about the processes that we used to implement the recruiting.
Let me just check in to see if there's any questions or comments. I know we've got, a mix of people attending who, I would call peers in mentorship work, or people interested. If you had, your own example of challenges or issues that you faced in recruiting mentors. Well, and we'll leave that question open as we go on. I do find people kind of like to name the problem and then head into the solution space. So we'll go into the more comfortable space of and we kind of want to open this up. We're treating this very much as community of practice engagement, and just really grateful for the volunteers to give another hour and a bit of their time to share their experience with us, but focusing on the opportunities and the possibilities to recruit mentors. And so for the mentor program professionals, the strategies that worked well, or for people who have been mentors, what motivated you to say yes? And I'll leave it open. And again, if you want to join in, you could raise your hand or put something in the chat and we'll weave that into the conversation. So yeah, maybe Rhodas, did you want to, since you were speaking last, talk a little bit about your strategies, given some of the challenges you faced?
For sure. Thank you. The first strategy, I call it shout it from the rooftops. That's essentially, be ready to speak about the mentorship program to anyone that's ready to listen. When you're doing your presentations, like I said earlier, have as many impactful videos, make sure your presentations are value packed. And then if you're presenting to potential mentors, draw out some of the testimonials that Paula and Kayla gave earlier, those are some of the things that we heard as well from people. So make sure you include things like that that can draw on the opportunities for the mentors themselves. And then again, I keep reverting back to our mentors that are presented here, but it actually is true. All of the things they shared, the busiest person, the second strategy is the busiest person will likely have time for it. And as you can tell, both mentors that presented today are super busy, but they still made time and made room for it. An example I have from my personal journey in looking at mentors was I held myself back at the beginning from asking people that I knew would be a great fit, because I kind of gave myself that excuse of they're too busy. But my encouragement to you is go for it, ask them. And there was one of the first few mentors where I knew she'd be a great fit, but I she heads an organization and she's busy and she's doing her master's and so many things. And I just ended up approaching her and she said, you know what, I actually had been considering it, but I wasn't sure if I would be a great fit. And so don't make excuses for yourself. Don't exclude someone based on your own perception. So go ahead and ask people. And the third one, I would say flexibility is the secret sauce. Flexibility, everything. And so one of the things that helped us is learning to meet mentors where they're at. So either the virtual connection that I talked about, where they're actually physically in an outside location where the mentorship match is virtual, or they're in a place where they have this ability to only meet during certain times, or they feel like they're only confident to meet in person. Meet them where they're at. There are people that would greatly benefit from them regardless. Being another sub thing under that is like being comfortable to call out the strength you see in a potential mentor. This is touched on what Kazim mentioned earlier, where we're not looking at their current status or their current skills, but really looking back to where they started. An example was we had one mentee that had a teaching background, but was wanting to go into IT. And so I chose to call on one of our mentors who's a retired principal. And he said, but I'm not experienced in IT. But I said, but you have experience of mentoring so many people through their career growths. I think you can do it. And so sometimes being bold enough to actually, share the qualities and the potential you see in mentors could go a long way. Another thing is, just because something has not been done yet, it doesn't mean it can't be done. We have one mentee that had a teaching background, had journalism background, but wanted to go into to be a pharmacy assistant. And he was ready to pay for tuition and this and that. And I said, you know what, let's hold off on that. And I went ahead and talked to a local pharmacy. And so this mentee actually was mentored by a full pharmacy staff. So they were able to take him under his wing. And there was multiple people that mentored him to see if it's something that he actually wanted to do. Turns out it's not something what he wanted to do. And he saved himself a couple of grand, probably like close to $15,000 there. But essentially ended up going back into teaching. So just because something has not been done, it doesn't mean you can't try it. And so, yeah, those were some of the strategies that I used.
And just to add to that, Rhodas, that was amazing. Thank you very much. Just to add to that, I would say, in terms of like finding mentors, I really do find that like digging into your personal and professional networks a lot. You'd be very surprised that you have at least 5 to 10 mentors in your personal and professional network that you have not reached out to. And, just having that conversation, I can say, in the last couple of months, mentorability really is just a part of my life. I'm talking about it everywhere. One of my neighbors, I was talking to him a little bit about mentorability at the gym, and now he's sending me a LinkedIn message saying he would like to join and be a mentor. So I think it really is about just having conversations about it at any point and just talking about it. Yeah, that's all I have to add.
I just want to add to that. I've had a history of when people see me walking down the street, whether it's in my neighborhood or at work, they just like, oh my God, here comes Doug. And Of course, I mean it's shameless, but the thing is that I think that it's actually more than not well received. And Kazim, to your point, I've got a lot of friends and family who are have been mentors now, and actually very thankful that they were asked.
So a lot of my points were covered by everyone. The flexibility is, I think, a really big piece. So being able to meet in person, sometimes online, others, I think having that mix and making sure that both the mentee and mentor are like comfortable with the setup from the beginning and the expectations are outlined is always helpful. And another thing I'll add based on our current conversation, one thing I think Intervivos does really well is that, and Kazim, I think this goes back to what you were talking about. They really, when you are presented as a mentor, they really kind of view the mentor in a very holistic way. So I'm not kind of showing up as a mentor just for my current title, but it's also my background in public health. It's my experience in the community. It's the boards I've been on previously. So that helps to reduce some of that expectation regarding the goal here isn't to get a job with my organization. It's to provide some guidance on like the field of public health, for example. So yeah, and so Intervivos does a really good job of not just recruiting mentors for their current title, but also recruiting just individuals who are passionate and involved in their community. And so I think that can be a really good approach. And then it enables you to be able to, I guess, be matched or contribute to a variety of mentees, regardless of their specific background.
I just wanted to add to and I think it's really important that couching people's expectations is so important because I think that mentees come into these relationships with, oh my God, the mentor is going to be my messiah and will get me to the promised land. But it's actually not that. It's as to your point, Kyla, it's about couching expectations so that that's not what it is. And a good mentor is going to be basically helping them shape strategies so that it's something that they can take with them beyond that relationship. So, I think, and also having structure in your program, because I know for a lot of mentors, they don't like ambiguity. So it's there's structure, but there's also a large piece of that is intuitive. And that there's a natural kind of conversation that goes on, and in our case it's peer to peer, and having a healthy discussion between them. And the mentor's skill is really asking the questions so that the mentee can actually hear themselves speak about their own knowledge that they have taking into their careers, because a lot of times it's just about finding that confidence and having a cheerleader.
I want to speak to, and Kimo, maybe you want to unmute and speak to your question, but how to set boundaries when a mentee wants more than mentoring, wants the mentor to connect them to jobs or opportunities. And, mentoring is a great thing when you're desperate to find work and to feed people. And it's an interesting time to insert mentoring. So, Kimo, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I was the chair for the Africa Center for about 6 years. And with that, there are a lot of people who usually come for some mentoring, whether it's staff, whether it's community leaders, and whether newcomers who sometimes you give them the mentorship, you direct them, you help them, but some still will want you to hold their hand and get them a job. And then sometimes it overwhelms the mentor because of those extra that is required. But sometimes it is if you have the opportunity, you can still be able to do that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, having worked in this space for a long time, it's those crucial conversations that are clear about this is how accessing a network helps. This is how, working on your personal presentation, either at resume or interview, the pieces towards it, towards the goal of getting a job, rather than saying, and we're going to guarantee this, because nobody can, right? In the nature of the labor market, there's no certainties about that. And so I know one of the things that I think the ERIC programs talked about is, how do we make you the most competitive, well-positioned, well-connected, so it's more likely to happen. But for sure, it helps, in a mentorship program to have the statistics that show at, exiting a program. Doug, I don't know what your current year statistics are, but that tends to speak to this is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it goes back to developing a good strategy as opposed to I mean, everybody wants the golden ring, right? And they want that job. But the thing is, if you have a strategy, we get stories like I've applied for 300 jobs and I haven't got an interview yet. We get that story quite a bit, and it's like, well, is that a problem of the job market, or is this maybe your strategy isn't working, or maybe you're using a strategy that was from a different context. And but the other thing too is celebrating some of the epiphanies or successes that you do get, which is, I got an interview. Your strategy is working. You may not have got the job, but like you were second place or third place, you're in the running, and so those kinds of successes. And I think it's really helpful to recognize that, because sometimes it's like, and we've all gone through that. Maybe we didn't get the job, but we did get the interview. So we're contenders and the strategy is working. So yeah. And I think just to the other point, Cheryl, in our program, and I'm happy to say, like, out of 184 mentor matches last year, 92% found work in their fields in Edmonton, which we're really, really, really proud of, as well as, and not just finding work in their fields, but also going back to school in their fields. That's also part of the success. And so people are still pursuing their careers, and eventually they're going to requite their careers.
And I just wanted to talk about the success, and thanks to both you, Doug, and Cheryl, for the pilot project in Lloydminster, which we did. And after some of the sessions, some of our mentees got job based on that, because there was an opportunity for connection to areas, work on their resumes, and they were able to get job directly after that. So it does happen on those bases for sure.
And Kimo, I'll just share some of the strategies that Intervivos uses. So going back to the comment about structure, Intervivos has a very well-structured mentorship program. So all mentors and mentees receive detailed information and kind of guidelines and principles prior to starting the mentorship program. Mentees attend their own orientation online before the launch, and same with mentors, where all of these kind of topics are raised. So I think like the topic around kind of like job expectations is one thing that the mentorship program specifically discusses with mentees. And then obviously after the orientation, mentees are given the opportunity to say, hey, this mentorship program is actually not what I thought it was going to be. I don't think I'm going to participate. So everything is very clearly outlined for participants prior to going in to the mentee mentorship relationship, which is great. And then Intervivos is also very good about kind of providing reminders and check-ins throughout the mentorship experience. And then the mentorship experience has a set kind of time when the official formal program ends, and then mentees and mentors can kind of choose if they'd like to continue the relationship with coffee and that kind of stuff. So I find the structure to be very helpful, and the organization kind of takes that role of reminding mentees about kind of the expectations of the program, which is also super helpful, and same with mentors. yeah, I think that was my main point, but just that structure really helps to set expectations from the beginning.
Well, and I know we have a few folks who are mentors here on the call. Maybe from a mentor perspective, what kind of worked for you to answer the call to mentor?
I could jump in here, Cheryl. So I'm Annette. I actually work with Scriptorium. It's my company. We do communications and writing. And I've been working with Doug and Cheryl on AIM since AIM was born. And I spent so much time learning about mentorship and didn't mentor until last year. But I think some of the things you're talking about, like Kayla, you're mentioning that framework and that structure. And I find like having that space for a closed commitment, and that doesn't mean your mentor relationship doesn't last beyond that, but that really helps. And it allows me to make that commitment knowing what that commitment is. And I think I mentioned earlier, I think it was Kazim who said like about the fears and the risk, and that really resonated with me because it's just like you go in and I know so much about mentoring, and yet I still felt like I don't know, am I experienced enough? Do I know enough? And I think for me, the thing that I really learned, I've had two incredible mentors. One I'm mentoring right now. They're both in the communications field like me. They were both from Nigeria, just coincidentally, and they're so capable, motivated, and they come with so much experience. And it was less about me sort of talking to them about how to be the right like have the right skills. It was more just about being a sounding board of running into this experience and sometimes like how things are done in Canada, how things have changed for them. And really just like I've learned we just start asking by asking questions every session. It's like, what are the challenges you're having now? So it's not following a particular script. And my advantage is since I know the AIM website and everything that it provides so well, I have ready resources. But like even my first mentor, she became unexpectedly pregnant and was like, what happens now? And she just had a new job. And so, being able to have information and to give that. And it's like that wasn't something either of us were ready for. And it was really helpful and reassuring to her that it was all going to be okay. And yeah, so I think learning to listen and just, I think we came up, flexibility has come up a lot, and it feels a lot more open and relational than I sort of expected. It is just fundamentally about connection and listening and often just being a cheerleader. They're getting frustrated and they don't need any particular answers. They just need someone to talk it out with. And I don't need to have the answers. And I feel they get something out of it more than I think I'm giving, but that's good, right? So I don't have to define the value they get. And it's been, for me, super rewarding, even though I knew that going in. Everyone says that it is rewarding, but I think the experience of it was so much more valuable than the intellectual thought of it. So, yeah.
No, and I really and people have said it in different ways. I see, Kimo, you've talked about doing like structured reverse mentorship, so that the mentees sort of take the lead about, sharing their experience, their expertise. Um, but this comment, a few people have said this, like I think Rhodas, you said it specifically to kind of name for potential mentors the strength you see in them. And Kayla, I think you talked about this, is that in some ways it helped create more coherence in your own sense of your career, in your career path, because you turn around and share. And so I'm really that as much as I've worked with Doug, around the mentorship space, I haven't really heard that before stated as like a benefit to mentors, that it can really help. We talk about it in general leadership terms. It can help you be a leader, but one element of that is to really own and know your own journey and sharing that, supporting somebody from that perspective, that place, is really part of consolidating the who you are as you're a leader, whether in your job, in your role, or in your community. So really great conversations here. Let's just, yeah, thanks, Rihanna, for your comment. That they learn a lot. I'm curious about, either from program perspective or mentor perspective, how could we communicate that element of, what mentors gain? Because I think when there's people like Pauline, yourself, you're community minded, you look for opportunities. That's an important part of your life. I think for people, maybe if they grew up without volunteerism modeled, it's just not a category of things that they can do. So I'm curious if, anyone, in here today, like, has ideas or suggestions about, how it would land for the people to be asked to mentor.
So I'll just maybe throw in something quickly. I'll put on my program evaluator hat right now, but maybe that's a topic for another community of practice. But I think making sure that your mentorship programs are really well evaluated so you can capture this information and the value of the programs is super important. So just a little thought there.
I think
I'm a big believer. Oh, go ahead, Pauline.
No,
That's
who was
okay. Go
going?
ahead.
I always interrupt online. Who was talking?
It was me. It was Rhodas.
Oh, go ahead.
But you can go ahead. Are you sure?
Yes, of course. I'll go after.
Awesome. Mom brain just kicked in. I was gonna say, I'm a big believer in not recreating the wheel. One of the things that I benefited when I first started the program was actually hearing from other people that were already in the program. So even if your program is not at a place where you have results yet, look around within Alberta, within similar communities, and see if you can reuse or repurpose some of the videos that are out there, some of the testimonials that are out there. Invite guest speakers to talk about their experiences from mentorship programs. That way, as you build your program, you already have someone else that has had success stories that can kind of build up your program.
Yeah, thanks for that. Just one of the comments I was going to make, I don't know where it fits in the discussion, but we've talked quite a bit about fear and in different ways. And I know I was actually just meeting with my niece yesterday, who's in the same industry that I'm in, and she just talked so much about fear and anxiety. And I just think that mentorship, both being a mentee and a mentor, really helps with confidence and helps build capacity in a very private, really informal setting that you can't get in a lot of places. And so I think about that when we are, as you're saying, how do you draw people into it? The other thing that she commented on, and I thought, yeah, bang on. She talked about imposter syndrome, and she's 22. Well, I have imposter syndrome, and I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it is part of just, I think, the human condition. Many of us feel like we know less, have less, don't understand, and so again, somehow talking about that, I don't know how you market to that or educate around that, but I think some of those common human conditions that we have, help people kind of maybe jump in when they would be afraid to do so. And the last thing I'll comment on, and it has been mentioned a lot, is just that balance between structure and flexibility. And it really is upon, I think, the organizations, as many of you have said, is to create a structure. And I know ECVO did a beautiful job of this. We know what our roles are. We have an opportunity to ahead of time really understand what it is that's expected of us. But there is also flexibility, and there is also flexibility. And so we have an opportunity to develop the relationship in a way that makes sense for us. We have an opportunity to continue the relationship if it makes sense to us. And for me personally, I always just think about verbal contracts when I'm having these relationships. And so, really just like people have been saying, asking all those questions, what is it that you're hoping to get out of this? How can we shape this so it makes sense for you? Just talking about all those things up front and including, when we meet, because that can be a huge issue for people, particularly if they have a job and they're starting in the field and that kind of thing. So I just think of that as a verbal contract, and it also, I think, generates the relationship. My 2 cents.
Yeah,
I just
if
like,
I can add a little bit to that, and I think thanks, Pauline. And you talked about confidence, and I think one of those things is when we talked about the reverse, whether it is formal or structured, the reverse is to empower sometimes those mentees that they have these certain skills that sometimes they don't have that confidence. But when you reverse that role, you actually enable them to get that confidence. And then it enables, for me, when I have mentored, when I learn a lot because it helps me to understand other people from maybe the same culture, the same country, how their job, work life is because of some of these, and because it enables you, because we're working in an immigrant community, and sometimes by having one mentor enables you to probably not for that mentee now, but the next mentee that is coming, you would have got a lot of this knowledge and experience on some strategy. May not be one size fit all, but at least you may have some foundation on dealing with the next mentee that you're having.
I just wanted to, I know we're at time here, but if everybody okay for a few more
Well,
minutes
we officially booked it for 75 minutes because
okay.
historically we've never kept it to an hour. We've always let over. So but again, if people do need to go, of course, please do. And well, you'll get follow-ups about the recording. So go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of leverage what Pauline had said, and I love that conversation they had with your niece. It is. I mean, we're all leaders, and the folks that we're working with are leaders as well, and are in the process of learning to become leaders. And it's so interesting that like the fact that there's anxiety out there and the vulnerability, and people don't want to wear their vulnerabilities on their sleeves, of course. But to me, that's part of the leadership journey, and if you're able to embrace that, your vulnerabilities, that's a position of power, and instead of a place where you feel like you're lacking something in it, or it's a deficit. And sometimes I think this is where the mentors can come into play, where it's like, this is you. And I, and I've always at my young age as a leader, I still recognize I got tons to learn, and I wear that on my sleeve, and I'm excited to learn. I've got some experience under my belt, but I mean, at the same time, there's still lots to learn from everybody that I encounter. So that to me is part of the recipe for becoming a good leader. And one other thing I wanted to say about mentorship is that my background's in community economic development, and this really is something about building community and building, people to hopefully anchor them into your communities. When you do this kind of work in mentorship, you're helping people to sort of anchor themselves in that community, that they feel welcomed and not wanting to leave. And it's hard these days because people are pretty mobile and looking for opportunities. But if they feel welcomed, there's probably a good chance they're going to stay in your community.
So, we've had a really great conversation, and I want to thank our panelists for volunteering one more hour for us. So Rhodas, Kazim, Pauline, Kayla. I have put in the chat links and descriptions around each of the mentorship programs, a big part of the AIM network is really promoting the culture of mentorship. And for sure, we want to spotlight and shine a light on mentorship programs because we know it works when it's flexible and structured, and good people come together. Good things happen with that. I'll just mention we'll have information out about this starting next week. Our next session is Thursday, October 2nd, same time, 10 to 11:15. It's a session on how we can integrate mentorship into programs and events. And we're pleased to have three good speakers, again, from organizations in Edmonton and in Alberta to talk about that topic. So hopefully you can join us. There'll be registration links sent out shortly. But happy to leave it open if there's someone who's had a question about something else that hasn't really been addressed. Please feel free to speak up. And, if you have a specific question of a panelist, want to know more about their program, I'm sure we could facilitate, connecting so those follow-up questions could happen. But I'll just check in to see if there's one more thing someone needs to ask about or share. Well, thank you so much for coming. It's been lovely to see your faces. I'm a big believer to put a lot of our attention, intention, and focus into the things we want to see in the world. So thanks for showing up for mentorship today, and I hope you have a great Friday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.